Hi guys, George here from Zero Period Productions. Now, after almost 11 years of Skyrim, many of us are looking for something a little different. Something to help change up parts of the core gameplay loop in order to keep things fresh. And if you're one such person, you're in luck. Because today we're taking a look at Shadow of Skyrim, Nemesis, an alternative death system by Syclonix. This is a mod loosely based upon the Nemesis system from Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War. The basic premise being that when you're defeated in combat, the enemy that defeated you will become a nemesis, being given new abilities and will taunt you when you encounter them again. The idea behind it is that by defeating you, the orcish soldier of Sauron's army would be able to claim some notoriety, and stand out from the more common foot soldiers who can't boast a similar achievement. There's also different fears, strengths, and weaknesses assigned to nemesis, as well as a hierarchy within the orcish ranks. Now, the Skyrim mod is inspired by the system, but it's not a one-to-one recreation. So, calm down, Warner Brothers, there's no cease and desist needed here. And while Shadow of Skyrim doesn't recreate every component of this system, I would argue that it doesn't need to. The changes it makes to Skyrim are enough to help make a playthrough feel fresh, whether you're starting a new one with the mod or even adding it onto a current save, both of which are safe to do. So, what does Shadow of Skyrim do exactly? There's a few ways in which it mimics the Nemesis system to provide a refreshed gameplay experience. First off, you don't die. Well, not really. When an enemy knocks your HP down to 0, you're defeated, and given a short message introducing you to your nemesis. This can be a bandit, a draugr, a dragon, or even a skeever. For more humanoid enemies, they're often given a unique name, such as Ghost of Hack, whereas creatures such as skeevers, wolves, and dragons are instead given a title added onto their name, such as Fearsome Dragon. Upon being defeated, you'll be given a debuff, such as not being able to use a shield, dropping a weapon in combat, or even a fear of man, mare, or beast, depending on which one took you down. You'll also drop an assortment of your gear, and bandits may even don your armor if it's better than what they were already wearing. Suffice it to say, you'll wake up at a little bit of a disadvantage, with a new miscellaneous quest pointing you towards your target. Where you wake up depends a bit on where you were defeated, and by whom. Should you be defeated by a vampire, you might wake up in a vampire's lair. If you were defeated by a guard, you'll wake up in the corresponding city's jail, and given the choice of breaking out or serving your sentence as you would should you be arrested normally. When testing the mod, I was defeated by a draugr pretty far into Bleakfall's Barrow, and was given a message that I narrowly escaped, waking up back at the entrance to the barrow. The convenience of this was that I hadn't lost any progress. All the bandits and draugr I had killed so far were still dead, and I could focus on looting their corpses to make up for any missing loot I had as I made my way back to the draugr that had taken me down. Without this alternative death system, had I died without saving during the dungeon, I would have had to replay all of it, killing all the enemies that I had already disposed of before my untimely death. And for that reason, I think the alternative death system is an especially great part of the mod, as it feels like it adds a little bit more continuity to a playthrough. Rather than falling back to a previous save point, you're paying for that defeat, and carrying on with the progress you've already made. Obviously, if you don't like that, you can reload a quick save and just redo everything anyway, but that's not really in the spirit of the mod now, is it? Should you want to remove this debuff and reclaim your hard-earned loot, you'll want to seek out your new nemesis and find the backpack you dropped when you were taken down, both of which will have their own quest markers. Defeating them will not only remove your debuff, but will grant you a new buff for claiming victory. By default, you'll only receive a buff from nemesis that are your level or above. That way you're not potentially farming level 1 skeevers for buffs. But enemies who are 25 levels or above yours will not give you a debuff should they kill you. This way you're not stuck with the debuff for hours potentially as you try to reach their level. All of these settings can be changed from the mod configuration menu, which also gives a convenient page to track your current nemesis, buffs, and debuffs. You can have a total of 5 nemesis and 5 debuffs at once, which allows for interesting opportunities and can make a playthrough a little bit more dire. Say for instance you die to a bandit chieftain and you lose your best gear to them. Rather than go after him immediately, you decide to go to another bandit camp to try and level and take some of their gear for yourself. But hey, that bandit chief doesn't like you either, knocks you down, and boom, suddenly you have 2 bandit nemesis, 2 debuffs, and even less loot than you did before. It forces you to think about what encounters are more survivable, which should be avoided, and to think before you wander into enemy camps. Stacking 5 debuffs at once definitely makes things more challenging, and I wouldn't recommend it unless you're a masochist, but hey, I don't judge. Should you continue to die to more and more enemies, the oldest of your 5 debuffs will be dropped, and the newest one will be swapped in its place. That being said, you can't swap an older nemesis out for a newer one. Whichever 5 you have at one point will persist until you claim victory over them. This was done to try and discourage players from trying to get rid of less desirable nemesis in place of weaker ones. Another component of Shadow of Skyrim is the follower integration, allowing your followers to possibly save your life before you bleed out and pass out. Once you're knocked down, followers will have a set amount of time to reach you and revive you, and should they successfully do so, you'll be given a portion of your max health and not receive any debuff. Should they fail to reach you in time, you'll receive a regular defeat, as you would without them, and they'll slowly find their way back to you after you've come to. There's a lot of little things in the mod that I think are really well done and really well thought through. Should your companion defeat the enemy but not revive you in time, the message pop-up will say that your enemy was killed, meaning that you don't get a debuff, since you wouldn't be able to kill them to remove it anyway. The same happens should you die to 2 groups of enemies fighting each other, and the one that downed you is killed after the fact. This means that you should never run into a situation where you're stuck with a debuff that you can't get rid of. A lot of the other little touches are really well done and can be found in the MCM, such as guards having a chance to take some of your gold when knocking you out, citizens arrests, and more. I think in terms of balancing, the mod author really thought through a lot of things, and Shadow of Skyrim is truly a lot of fun. I'm always a fan of alternative death mods, and while this is certainly not the first one out there, I think it's the most promising because it is bundled in with the Nemesis system. It all works together to give players new stories to tell. That being said, there's still more that the author wants to add. They hope to add new enemy names and titles, different buffs and debuffs, new respawn locations and situations, and some new unannounced features as well. All of these are welcomed additions, as you'll start to see some repeating names and titles after a short while, the same debuffs, and in my short time testing the mod, I know I saw a lot of the same respawn locations. There were instances where I would be teleported halfway across the hold to caves that I hadn't discovered yet. In terms of balancing, there's a couple things I might like to see changed or tweaked. One of the debuffs I ran into was especially annoying. I had a fear of men on a bandit nemesis, and as a result, a lot of physical attacks from ranged or melee weapons might heal them for a significant portion of their health. When that's coupled with a debuff where you do less damage with power attacks, it creates a really long-winded, not very fun fight. I had this happen once with a bandit, and another time with a bear when I had fear of beasts. Both fights turned into me hitting them with a weapon only to see them heal up to almost full, and then using what little magic I had to try and slowly whittle down their health with a basic flame spell. At other times I ran into some bugs or issues with the situational respawn, and one time I found myself in the Castle Dower Tower, with no way of getting out. In this case, I either had to reload an old save or console command my way out. Another time, I died to a bandit at Valtheim Towers and woke up in the middle of Morvenskar. And since I was level 1 and had just lost my better armor, I was defeated instantly by all the mages who were now suddenly aware of my presence. Fortunately, you can also turn off situational respawns and rely instead on waking up where you last slept, or waking up at your most recent location. Since the mod places a lot of emphasis on enemy level, I do recommend getting a mod that will display that. That way you know if a potential nemesis will give you a buff, or if they're way above your current level. Shadow of Skyrim is not compatible with a handful of other mods, most notably Skyrim Together Reborn and the Critical Hit mod. It has some partial compatibility with other alternate death mods, werewolf and vampire player overhauls, and alternate start mods. There's even compatibility for survival mods, such as Frostfall. In the case of a lot of the semi-compatible mods, it'll require making a few changes in the mod's MCM when you first set it up. For a full list, I recommend checking out the mod page. That being said, it's a relatively lightweight mod and should be compatible with a lot of mods out there, such as different combat overhauls. As for requirements, it's pretty straightforward, and has options for Skyrim Special Edition, Anniversary Edition, and even Skyrim VR. Obviously, you're gonna need the Skyrim script extender and Sky UI, but everything after that is optional. MFG fixes, engine fixes, Power 3's tweaks, all of these are optional, but they do help to fix a lot of potential minor bugs that might crop up otherwise. If anything, I was waiting for this to be a real meaty mod with a lot of different requirements, more incompatibilities, and so on. I really want to applaud Syclonix on how easy of an installation this is. It's straightforward, plug and play, easy to use. It's a great and relatively easy experience for people who are looking to change up the gameplay, but are maybe a little bit newer to installing mods to their game. As I mentioned earlier, the mod can be used on a new save or an existing one, but either way you'll have to initialize the mod after installing it. To do this, open up the MCM and check off the checkbox. For a new game, the Nemesis system won't start tracking until after you leave Helgen. That way you don't find yourself in a weird, buggy scenario if you're defeated under Helgen's fort. One of the MCM sections allows you to check off if you're using alternate start mods, specifically Realm of Lorcan, which will make sure that Nemesis starts at the appropriate time. Should you be using Live Another Life, like yours truly, you'll be good to go from the abandoned prison immediately. I even tested this by dying to the first ghost I saw in the prison. I promise, he wouldn't have killed me normally. It was for science, obviously. While I tested this mod with vanilla gameplay balancing, I think Shadow of Skyrim is a mod that can benefit greatly from being coupled with some balancing mods or combat overhauls for those looking to create a more challenging experience, or even to create one more in line with Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War. I know Valhalla Combat just released for Skyrim. I got to test it out for a few hours the other day, and I can see that working really well alongside Shadow of Skyrim. That's it for today. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. With the ongoing quest mod drought of 2022 that's going on right now, it's fun to dip my toes back into videos like this. Because frankly, while there might be a quest mod drought, there is a downpour for great gameplay mods such as this. And don't worry, the usual Skyrim Saturday videos will continue. But we might sprinkle in videos like this occasionally, and we always have new episodes of the Skyrim Special Edition modded playthrough every Tuesday and Friday. And if you'd like to see me play games other than Skyrim, and sometimes even test mods such as this one, check out my streams at twitch.tv/0periodproductions. It's a great place to talk about Skyrim modding, the gaming industry, and more. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.